We're out at the beautiful Banner shooting range for yet another exciting video. Today we're going to do the first of an occasional series we'll probably do videos in. What we're going to call Great Gimmick or Terrible Gimmick, the Firearms Edition. To start off that series, we're going to be taking a look at our SIG P365 SAS or SIG Anti-Snag. This firearm has the MiPro bullseye sight, no front sight, and in the still images you'll see where on the left side of the frame the takedown lever and the slide release are flush with the frame of the firearm. All these things that SIG says snag on the draw, well, now you don't have those to snag. Though it does make takedown a little more challenging in that you need something like a dime or a screwdriver to articulate the takedown screw. They might still call it a lever, but really it's just a flathead screw type tip at that point. The slide release, I would say it's there, but it's really not something I can articulate reliably with my thumb, so I will often just release the slide by pulling back on the slide when the slide locks back. The MiPro bullseye sight, which I'll show you some pictures of, is, well, it's a little different. If you're used to traditional iron sights, it's not very like traditional iron sights. It's a circle with a dot in the middle. You put the dot, you want it perfectly centered in the circle over your target, which is how you set up the sight picture on the gun. You'll often see people when they review this firearm, they talk about how the sight's off, it's to the left, it's to the right. Now, I've never shot their guns, but my gut tells me their real problem is they're not getting that dot perfectly circled, perfectly centered in the circle to then get a straight sight picture. So hopefully we can do that today. We have less than ideal light conditions. We're in the shadow. There's really not any light hitting or direct sunlight that's hitting the fiber optic to illuminate that sight very well. So we'll see if we can use it accurately today. Cross your fingers. Though I would say at 10 yards and in with the bullseye sight, when you can see it, it can be very accurate. Though I have a feeling most people who gravitate towards this SIG anti-snag, while they might occasionally use the sights, are probably doing more point shooting or instinct shooting than using the sights. Though we're going to try to use the sight today. So here we go. I'm going to start with a 15-round magazine. And for our ammo today, we have our world famous bucket of random bullets. This is a bucket just full of random 9mm bullets. Some of them are MagTech, some of them Remington, some of them Winchester, some of them I feel like are maybe reloads that one of the out-of-state crew sent us. It's a mix of weight bullet types. Some of them are flat nose round point. Some of them are what we'll call traditional full metal jacket. You get the idea. With how reliable this P365 has been in the past, I don't anticipate the varying bullet styles and weights to give it a problem today, but we'll see. So here we go. Let's do 15 shots at our left-hand target. Here we go. Okay, we didn't get a lock back on empty on that last one. We might have something like 14 of 15 on the target, only one in the bullseye. I would say we need to bring it a little to the left. And our elevation is all over the place, which some of that is, and I don't have a good way to show that on camera, is with the light conditions today, there's a bit of a glare on the bullseye sight. So I can kind of see the bullseye, but then there's a white glare just to the right of that dot, making it a little challenging to actually get the sight lined up. Let's do a 10-round magazine, and we'll see if we can do any better. And as you can see here, I can't articulate the slide release.
So we'll have to do the slingshot method. Here we go at our left-hand target.
Okay, I feel like I did better that 10. At least a few hits in the bullseye and around the bullseye. And we might have put all 10 on the target. Let's do one last magazine before we change our targets.
And what I'll do is I'll do 5 shots, one-handed, right-handed, transition to left-handed, 5 shots, one-handed, left-handed, and we'll see if I can put any hits on that right-hand 8-inch target. Here we go.
Okay, looks like maybe 4 or 5 on the target, 1 on the bullseye, not terrible. Let's try to match that left-handed. Here we go. Looks like no hits on the target left-handed. That's sort of been the norm as of late. To finish out the video on our SIG anti-snag gimmick, great gimmick or terrible gimmick video, we set out, we're going to assess the accuracy in today's weather light conditions.
I put out a 2-inch target out there with a sticker of Fred just above it. And we're going to see if I can put any hits on that 2-inch target here and see how it goes. Now, quite a few people actually, when the range was cold before we got shooting today, were checking out the sight on this firearm. And so far, except me, faintly being able to see it as I'm familiar with the sight, nobody that's looked at this firearm has been able to actually see the bullseye in that Me Pro bullseye sight to actually sight on a target. So let's see how we can do with it here. I'm going to do 10 shots with my normal 2-handed grip. I'll reload and we'll probably do 10 shots with my left-handed 2-handed grip. So let's see if we can put any hits on that little target here today. Okay, from back here, we have 1 in the bullseye, 1 at about 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and 6 o'clock. So at least 4 hits. I'll have to review target cam, but 1 at 6 o'clock from back here looks like a double tack, but it might not be a double. But at least 4 of 10 on the target using that Me Pro bullseye sight. One of the challenges when shooting a target that small, even though we're not that far away, is the bullseye sight, because you can't see through the slide and your slide is obscuring your target. When the target that small at this range, you can't see that target at all. So there's quite a bit of guesswork, shall we say, on are you aiming at the right spot to get close to the target. So let's see with our left-handed two-handed grip, if I can put any hits on there. We'll say 4 hits on the target. So here we go.
Okay, I don't think we put any hits on that target with our left-handed two-handed grip. Though I guess on the bright side, Fred survived. So he's got that going for him. In today's video, we asked the question, are the SAS or SIG anti-snag features of the P365 a great gimmick or a terrible gimmick? Before the accuracy test today, I made a comment about multiple people checking out the P365 SAS I brought to the range today, and how nobody was able to clearly see that bullseye sight. Some people asked to look at it under the bright lights, where they finally saw it, and others they asked to take it inside and see how it looked with the tritium in action. Those people, they never saw it. I asked the people who joined in for what became show and tell day at the range today if they thought this pistol was a great gimmick or a terrible gimmick. Other than the one range officer who knew right away what it was and replied saying they were actually looking to buy one, everyone else replied that they thought it was a terrible gimmick. For the most part, I would say I agree with them. Remember, we're not talking about the P365 platform in general, but the SIG anti-snag or SAS model specifically. The Mi Pro bullseye sight is pretty limited, at least in my experience. In full bright light, it's very bright and easy to see, but both when in the shadows or in the dark, that bullseye is very hard to see. As we saw today, when positioned where there's a glare on that bullseye window, the difficulty only goes up. One challenge with the bullseye sight is you have to be looking at it at the perfect angle, slightly off one way or the other, and the window can be completely dark. The bigger challenge is a byproduct of how the sight is recessed into the slide. That recessed sight is very neat for the anti-snag features, but once the firearm has cleared the holster and the sight is put to use, you find that your slide obscures much of the target. In a close range self-defense situation where you're probably point or instinct shooting, it probably doesn't matter. But on the range where you're shooting at a target beyond bad breath range, this only magnifies the challenge. Unless I'm shooting at a very large target, beyond 10 yards, I find it extremely difficult to get a consistent aim point on something, like say an 8-inch target. While I like the bullseye sight, and I think it's a fun sight capable of shooting very accurate and precise groups at targets at 10 yards and in, as far as a self-defense sight system goes, at least in my book, it's a questionable gimmick at best. Beyond the sights, the SAS model of the P365 has 2 other features that I think further move it in that terrible gimmick direction: the low-profile slide release and the takedown not a lever. Testing various micro pocket pistols over the years, as pocket carry pistols, I've never had an instance where a firearm has snagged on my clothes against the slide release or the takedown lever on the draw. Though to be fair, I've also never had a front or rear sight snag either. But I digress. Many shooters these days are fans of being able to drop the slide via the slide release when reloading their firearm, when they're not doing a combat reload. I flip back and forth between using the slide release and the slingshot method, but even when I'm in slingshot mode, I like having a slide release as an option for those times where I might not have a free hand to employ the slingshot. If one of my hands is out of commission and my firearm has the slide locked open,
I'm probably dead in the water, at least with this P365 SAS. At least with most iron sights on other firearms, you can catch that rear sight on your belt or some other surface to help disengage the slide release if your other hand is not usable. With no sights on the P365 SAS, that's not an option. Knocking the low profile takedown lever is probably a little nitpicky, but even so, I still prefer being able to field strip a pistol without having to find some tool to articulate the takedown lever or push a slide stop in. I suspect I'm not in the minority on that front. So while my P365 SAS might have the best factory trigger of all my P365s, it's fun to shoot, accurate, reliable, and apparently one of the more popular pistols on show and tell day at the range, I think it's firmly in that terrible gimmick side of today's question. That probably explains why it's rumored to be discontinued. Other than people like me who bought it to experience the bullseye sight, who are few and far between, most consumers who are looking for a P365 are going to buy a different model, one with more advantages and fewer gimmicks. But what do you think of the P365 SAS? Are you like the majority of people who, off camera today, thought it was a terrible gimmick? Or does it have some redeeming quality for you that puts it in that great gimmick side of the aisle? Let us know in the comments. Well, anyway, that seems like the perfect spot to end today's video. If you enjoyed today's presentation, like the video, share it with your friends and family. Those things are free, and it really helps the channel greatly. If you didn't enjoy today's video, go ahead and like the video anyway. No one's going to know you did it, and it helps us out a lot. If you'd like to help us make even more of these videos in the future, look into becoming a member. Fred and I really appreciate you getting this far. Thanks for watching, and as always, have a nice night.